Bienvenidos once more, amigos and fans of Frightastic cinema. This is Jaime En Fuego. You are on Enfuegotainment, and the reason I'm stumbling over my words is because this is a very slightly saddened moment for me, because I am on the 31st and final installment of my complete Tales from the Crypt series coverage. When I realized that there were 93 episodes and 31 days in the month of October, obviously it made sense to cover 3 episodes of Tales from the Crypt, 1 segment a day, and it's been, it's been a journey, I gotta tell you, and I finally just watched the last 3 episodes of the series, Season 7, and yeah, I always cover the BUENO, the MALO, and the FEO here on Enfuegotainment, the hottest entertainment with an edge, and so, yeah, let's just get right into these last 3 episodes, I guess. And the BUENO, the good episode, is called Confession, and this one was written by Scott Nimmerfro. He has done so much for Tales from the Crypt, especially in the final few seasons. He wrote like almost a dozen episodes, and he scripts this one as well, and he was actually the story supervisor, I believe, for pretty much the last couple seasons, so he had a hand in everything, but he scripted this one. Then you had Peter Hewitt directing, an interesting choice, because, I mean, he did stuff like one of those crazy Home Alone, Home for the Holidays, or something that did not have Macaulay Culkin in it, and he did like Tom and Huck with Brad Renfro, and Jonathan Taylor Thomas, that dumb kid from the Home Improvement show. But yeah, I must say I loved his feature debut, which was actually Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and you see William Sadler, he was the Grim Reaper in that, and he actually showed up reprising that same role in a game, with the Crypt Keeper in an earlier season. He was also on the very first season of the show, and this is all just correlating work. But yeah, in any event, yeah, William Sadler, awesome talent, and did some great stuff in Tales from the Crypt, and Peter Hewitt directed him in his feature film debut, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. But yeah, so Hewitt's directing this one, and it stars Eddie Izzard as a screenwriter who gets like totally, you don't really know throughout if he is actually this killer or not, but he at least gets taken into custody, and he's getting grilled by this like totally hard as nails police officer and this detective and stuff, and good performances, really good cat and mouse chemistry and stuff like that. Good scripting from Nimmerfro and good direction from Hewitt, and Eddie Izzard, I mean, everybody knows him from like his crazy cross-dressing stand-up silliness, but he was also in Shadow of the Vampire with John Malkovich, and most recently he was in a bunch of episodes of Hannibal before that show went under. So Izzard is not just doing silly stuff like The Riches and lots of stand-up work. I mean, the guy is multifaceted, and it's funny how there is actually, for the 3rd time, a Tales from the Crypt like writer reference, because there were the earlier episodes like Corman's Calamity, which was awesome, and then there was Whirlpool, which was just kind of lame. But yeah, this one, when the cop is interrogating him, he even says, "You at one time worked for Tales from the Crypt, blah blah blah," and so in any event, yeah, great episode. It is definitely befitting of the BUENO, and it was nice to see a familiar face in Eddie Izzard, because I have seen far less familiar faces in this 7th and inevitably final season of Tales from the Crypt. So there it is, your last BUENO episode here on the 31st installment of my Tales from the Crypt full series coverage. So let's get into our MALO episode. And this one's called Ear Today, Gone Tomorrow. I know, Tales from the Crypt just loves their play on words, and John Cassire's the Crypt Keeper especially. But yeah, this one has this guy played by Robert Lindsay, who, I mean, probably best known for all that time he spent on the Horatio Hornblower show. He wasn't the main dude on that, he was someone else. But yeah, so Lindsay is this guy who's fresh out of the can, but he's a lot older, and he used to be like this crack, I guess safe breaker guy, and so he was really good at that, but his hearing's all messed up now. And so, he's originally, supposed to be working on this one safe, and he messes up and he can't get it done, and so these gangster guys are pretty much going to kill him, but the wife of this super rich, bad dude is like, no, let's keep him around, he might still have some use. And so it's written by Ed Tapia, and he was actually an assistant to, Mr. Katz and Mr. Adler, Gilbert Adler, the 2 guys who are pretty much the showrunners of Tales from the Crypt. He was their assistant in the 6th season, and then here for the 7th season, I'm assuming he got a promotion because he was an associate producer himself. He writes this episode, the only one that he ever did. And then you've got a very odd choice in Christopher Hart directing. The guy never directed anything else besides this one very weird episode of Tales from the Crypt, which is not very good. It's today's MALO for a reason, But he was most notable for being like a Canadian magician who, long before David Duchovny was like the world's greatest hand model. Yeah, there's my little Zoolander reference. He played Thing in the Addams Family films, all three of them, including that third one that didn't even have Raul Julia in it, or oh goodness, her name is totally eluding me. I feel so bad, but she was an amazing Morticia. So yeah, he was like this hand magician model actor. I don't know, but for whatever reason, he's directing this episode, and with the exception of a very strange twist that actually borrowed a little bit from one of my favorite episodes from the first season, which was called Dig That Cat, He's Real Gone, which was directed by Richard Donner. This episode just did not really bring a lot to the table, especially for being the final live-action Tales from the Crypt episode, and we're going to be getting into the reason for that when we get into my Feo episode here in a moment. But yeah, it's kind of a boring episode, as I mentioned, a cool twist, but beyond that, it was just very forgettable and very malo. It was just not a good episode. No bueno, yo. So I guess here, drum roll, or play the sad horn, the brr, brr, brr. Yeah, because this is the final episode, not just of my Tales from the Crypt coverage, but of the series, period. And it's called The Third Pig, and it's not based on any Tales from the Crypt comic. It's actually a very odd animated retelling of The Three Little Pigs, but done with like a little horror twist to it. It was written and directed by Bill Kopp, K-O-P-P, yeah. This guy did work for those Simpsons shorts that were on the Tracy Ullman show before The Simpsons was even a series, back when it was just these tiny little shorts. And then he also worked on like Eek the Cat and the Terrible Thunder Lizards, which I actually really enjoyed when I was a kid. That was a pretty damn good cartoon. And most notably though, he pretty much presented himself to the world and made a name originally doing those weird animated like sequences that were during Better Off Dead, that John Cusack movie. Anyway, guy's strange, and this cartoon is very strange. It gets ugly because it's a very ugly retelling of the Three Little Pigs, and there's some violence and some nastiness, and it was probably cool for him to not be doing Saturday Morning Fox cartoons, to actually be doing something with some more like blood and ridiculousness to it, and it's an edgy cartoon, but it's ugly and weird, and it's just also a failure for the sheer fact that it ended up being the last episode of Tales from the Crypt. So after the 6th season, just to give a little background, Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight, the first feature film, came out in '95, and I don't know how well it did at the box office. I think it did just moderately good, but it was actually reviewed quite well, and it's a pretty damn good movie from what I remember. It's been a while since I've watched it. But after this 7th season of Tales from the Crypt, there was the second feature film, which was Tales from the Crypt Bordello of Blood. And the Feo, to continue with that theme, the ugly, is that movie bombed at the box office. It bombed so bad that it was so Feo, and I didn't even think it was that bad of a movie. I actually enjoyed Bordello of Blood. But the Feo is the fact that it essentially killed the series, There was not an 8th season of Tales from the Crypt after Bordello of Blood, and it took them I think another 5 or 6 years to even try making another Tales from the Crypt movie, and then that one didn't even see the light of day here in North America until 5 years after it was made. Totally Feo. But there's some redeeming qualities here in this final episode of Tales from the Crypt. It's bloody and kind of funny in that sense. You've got great voiceover work being done. You've got Bobcat Goldthwait, actually making his return to Tales from the Crypt. He was in a 2nd season episode that was directed by Richard Donner, scripted by Frank Darabont, that was awesome, called The Ventriloquist Dummy, where it was him and Don Rickles, and that's a great episode. Please seek that one out. That one's a lot of fun. And you've got Brad Garrett, that everybody knows from Everybody Loves Raymond, but he also did voiceover work in direct-to-video Disney stuff like Pocahontas 2, and actually really good Disney stuff like Finding Nemo and Ratatouille. So yeah, the guy has been in front of the camera, but he's also done tons of voiceover work, and the 2 other little pigs are actually voiced by other people with tons of work in the industry too. You've got Charlie Adler, who did a bunch of voiceover work in, he's got hundreds of stuff to his credit, but he did most of the voices on Tiny Toons. He recently voiced Starscream in those Transformers movies, so yeah, he's got some clout. And then you've got the third pig voiced by Cam Clark, and he did, he was Leonardo on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon, the one in the late 80s, early 90s that I loved so much. He also voiced Kaneda in Akira, the first English dub, the one that, came out in like the late 80s. That was super, super awesome, man. If you have not seen Akira, that combines science fiction and horror and just all this different stuff. And so Cam Clark, great voiceover work, and you will definitely, if you're a child of the 80s and 90s like myself, recognize his voice in this cartoon episode. It's actually pretty good. And then you've got Bill Kopp being helped in the directorial side of things by Mr. Pat Ventura, who did tons of stuff in the 80s, from like Muppet Babies to the Smurfs. And so, yeah, you've got capable voice talent. You have, like good animators. And it's not that bad of an episode. Originally, when I first started watching it, I wanted to hate on it. I wanted to make it the MALO episode today. And I, in the 11th hour, I just kind of decided, the crazy rhyme scheme that they were going throughout. And it's also being narrated by John Kassir as the Crypt Keeper. And, at the end of the day, it's some good feo. It's some bueno feo. It's got some ugliness. It's an ugly twist on that Three Little Pigs story, and it's actually pretty damn good, I gotta say. And the ending is funny. It made me laugh. So there you have it, guys. That ends and concludes not just the 31st episode of my Tales from the Crypt coverage, but all of this enormous undertaking that I took upon myself. I ended up kind of driving myself nuts with it, but it was a lot of fun, and it was cool to discover some Tales from the Crypt episodes that I had never seen before that were awesome, and also be reminded which ones, when I'm having discussions with fellow film fanatics, to totally avoid. So I've been Jaime En Fuego. I have been your host here on Enfuegotainment by way of the horror show for all of this creeptastic coverage. You can find me all over the internet, all over the social media sectors, just at Jaime En Fuego, just like you're seeing it spelled below. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, I spend a little bit of time on Facebook, and obviously here on YouTube as well. Make sure to check out all of my fright-tastic fun that I have constantly, 3 times a week, sometimes more, on The Horror Show, just at thehorrorshowchannel.com and The Horror Show channel on YouTube. And just keep in mind, look forward to a bonus episode that will be coming soon, which is going to be me actually covering the 3 Tales from the Crypt films, because, the numbers even out perfectly for that too. So it's a lot of fun. I extend a grande gracias to all of you guys for tuning in, whether you saw just a few of these episodes or just for whatever weird random reason stumbled upon this final episode. So once again, thanks everybody, and I look forward to discussing more fright-tastic fun with you soon. So until then, adios, sin amigos! And stay tuned for that bonus episode covering the Tales from the Crypt movies.